Welcome to Brain Wrestling. My name is Derek Christopher. Of course, I'm here with the sing to my song, the ding to my dong, the king to my Kong, Walter Jacobson. Walter, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Derek.
Okay, so we're gonna start something on we're gonna go something very low key. 4 people were killed in Alabama, 18 injured in another mass shooting. I don't know how many we've had this year. It seems to have picked up. It seems to have picked up in the last couple of years. I think ever since the pandemic, people sort of went crazy. My question is, when are we going to stop treating the mass shootings, guns, and everything as a political problem and call it for what it really is? It's a mental health problem. It's a mental health problem. And I don't know why we can't admit that. I don't know why people don't want to talk about it. I mean, what's your take on it?
Well, you're absolutely right, and that's what offends the Second Amendment, MAGA people is that, hey, look, I know how to use a gun. I'm responsible. I'm not going to go out and shoot people,
Yeah.
and even if they come into my house, I'm not going to shoot them unless I need to, which is a distinction from Kamala Harris. But look, it's so the wackos are the ones you want the guns to be away from, and you need to screen out the wackos. And these people are mentally ill, and they need treatment, and they need to not possess guns.
But what's this issue? I mean, I hear people, I'll tell you, I even have like cousins and stuff that say this, that they go, I have like 18 guns in the house. I have one in the kitchen. I have got one in the pantry. I've got one in the bread box. It's like, who the fuck is coming to get you that you need to, you're so fucking paranoid.
I totally agree that some people are massively excessive and paranoid and scared about it. And, and it ties into a lot of conspiracy theories about the government wanting to take your guns away. And then you're going to have a revolution and a militia that's armed.
Which is never going to happen.
I know. And it's crazy. But to get back to your point, even those people with the arsenals, because I have a few close friends with arsenals, but they're not maniacs. They just got the arsenals and they're sitting there locked up for the day.
When you say arsenal, how many guns do they have?
More than 10.
Oh, and why? I mean, what is the purpose? So they're normal people. You say that they're mentally stable. Why do they have 10 plus guns in the house?
Because of people like you.
No, seriously, no. I don't understand the logic of it.
Look, this is human nature. If one is good, 10 is better. If I'm safe with 3, I'll be safer with 10. It's just a mentality, a fear mentality that perpetuates excess. And that's the same thing with OCD and hoarders. They can't throw anything away.
But isn't that what's feeding into these mass shootings, these suicides, is when you have that many guns, and especially if you have children, you make those guns so readily accessible. You normalize those guns.
Okay,
guns should never be normalized.
Okay, that's true. But you just spun from your initial position. So now you're talking about what we got to do to keep all these excessive guns out of these hands of people. They're not necessary. And I go back to the parenting, the mental illness. Well, you know what? I said this 25, 30 years ago. You should have a mental exam. Every kid goes to the doctor once a year for a physical exam, get some blood tests, get a mental cognitive exam, get a personality test. Let's see if the sociopaths are starting out and do something.
Now, first of all, parents will never say that because every parent thinks, and this happens with every shooter. Oh, he was so nice. Oh, he was so gentle. I would never expect it from him. Now, I don't know about you. I know, like, I go to UCLA for my doctor. Every time maybe this is just me. Maybe I shouldn't be disclosing this. Every time I go in for like my annual, they always ask me mental health questions. How are you feeling? Are you feeling like you want to hurt yourself? Do you feel like you're a threat and whatnot? And I go, but they also ask you if you need somebody in the room to feel safe, which is so fucking ridiculous.
Let me ask you, do they ask you if you want a proctology exam?
Well, they offer that as soon as I walk in. I mean, I hear that glove snap and I snap to attention. You know what? Okay. I gotta tell you something. I've yet to do that yet because they give me some other tests where they don't have to do that.
They don't have to do that anymore.
Remember it was Howard Stern?
You don't have to cough twice?
Howard Stern, I feel like I do that with you every show. Howard Stern once said that he would rather have cancer than let somebody stick their finger up his ass.
I totally believe that from that guy.
But no, so when I go to the doctor, they do ask mental health questions, but I wonder if they do that with kids. And maybe they should, but parents will go crazy because they will insist that there's nothing wrong with their little Johnny.
Yeah, and so the answer to that though is that's great. That's great, but look, you bring Johnny in. Nothing wrong with Johnny, but you're going to have to. You want to get some blood tests. You want to listen to his heart and lungs. Maybe you'll find a heart defect. It's the same thing. Each year, things change, and your kid could be going south. And look, we're not saying you're bad parents. We're saying we got to watch out for this stuff.
But as a psychiatrist, what questions would you ask a child? Like if a kid came in and he was 10 or 12, what questions do you think you would have to ask that would sort of lead you down the path that maybe there's a problem here, that this kid is a danger to himself or to others?
Okay, so the biggest problem of all this is that this is pediatric and adolescent psychiatry. I'm an adult psychiatrist. I studied this stuff, but it's like in the blurry like background of my mind. But because kids don't always talk and reveal themselves the same way an adult would. So if you
Right.
say to an adult, do you ever have thoughts of like driving your car into a tree? You're going to get an answer of some sort. But with a kid, you go, are you happy? Are you sad? Do you like your parents? How are things going with are you bullied? I mean, there's all sorts of questions you ask, but a lot of kids oftentimes are shut down and not going to tell you stuff.
See, but sometimes those questions aren't fair because if you asked me, if I laid down on your couch and you said, have you ever thought about driving into those bicyclists that are blocking the street? I'd be like, yeah, I think about that every time I drive by those fucking annoying cyclists that take all the street. But doesn't mean I would ever do it.
That reminds me of the Christopher Walken in that it was at Manhattan or Annie Hall where he's the brother driving Woody, and
Yeah.
he's like, sometimes I think about driving off the road, and Woody's there going,
But don't you think people generally have dark thoughts, but that doesn't mean that you're going to follow through with it?
right, right. But getting back to the children thing,
Yeah.
there are ways to ask kids questions that don't sound charged, just to get a sense of are they happy or not? Are they well adjusted or not? Oftentimes you can show them pictures, like, you'll show them a picture and they project onto the picture. Well,
Yeah.
what do you see is happening here? Well, the mother's screaming at the son, and it could be the mother has a cupcake, so you know what I mean? So they can have these projective tests for kids who can't articulate or verbalize their feelings, and you can see if there's aggression. You can see if there are issues there. There are things that can and should be done every year.
But why are we so afraid as a society to approach that, to work? Because I think the mental health level in the United States right now is at an all-time low. I think people they've lost their minds. I think the pandemic really fucked people up.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
at first I didn't think so. At first I thought, get over it. You should be happy you were sitting at home and whatnot. But it really fucked up the way people perceive the way they approach laws. They think that they're invincible. They think the laws don't apply to them. They think the way they should treat other people doesn't apply to them. They think that they're always right and everybody else is always wrong. And I don't know where you come
Okay,
back
but
from that.
but it wasn't just that. It was also during the lockdown that people ended up being in front of their screens a lot, being on
Yeah.
social media a lot, getting their news, their information, their misinformation, their indoctrination.
Yeah, you're right.
They're fueling their anger, their rage, the hatred. You suck, you suck. I mean, it's unbelievable. So the people just got so wound up with alienation
And no outlets.
and rage. Yeah, yeah. And now it's just spilling out all over the place. And critical thinking has gone out the window. But you mentioned mental health. The reason why people really don't want to get too far into it is because, just about everybody is mentally ill. And if you think about all the people, as a psychiatrist, I will tell you there are hundreds of millions of people on drugs, on mood altering drugs.
I was just going to get into that next. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is to keep them, because otherwise, paper clips and super glue isn't going to work. I mean, these people actually need these drugs just to function. But there are other people, of course, who abuse the drugs, and then they become like,
But that goes to my next question. Do people really need these drugs, or has big pharma just embedded in people's minds that, we can cure anything? You're feeling lonely, we can cure that. You're feeling afraid, we can cure that. I mean, they come up with, every time you turn the TV on, there's a drug for every fucking thing.
Oh yeah, and there's drugs for things they haven't invented yet, but they'll come down the pike. Don't worry.
Yeah.
And it'll happen. Look, the psychiatric drugs. I hate prescribing drugs to people.
Yeah.
I tell people, look, see a therapist. Look at your issues, your stressors, your relationships, your cognitive thinking. Get cognitive behavior therapy to separate reality from fantasy, your fear from facts. Most people don't want to do it. They want the quick fix, which is the pill, and it's terrible. And the only reason why I do it, by the way, is I do have to make a living, but is because if I say no, I'm not going to give any medicine to people. They're going to go somewhere else to some butcher who's going to really screw them up.
Yeah,
So
at
I
least you
try
have
to
some way
be
to
very,
you have some way to monitor it.
yeah, and be conservative about it and try to make them aware of the addiction issues and other cognitive issues, etc.
But here's my question. Do you think that Big Pharma is kind of like
Oh,
Mother's Day? They created Mother's Day because they wanted to create a holiday to make cards so they could make money. Does Big Pharma create mental issues that really don't exist or never existed or wouldn't exist because they have, oh, we have a drug for this that we think that's going to work and we can make a lot of money off of it. So we're going to shove that narrative down the throat of the American public, and eventually they're going to buy into it.
yeah, people don't want to realize, and I don't know why they don't realize that big pharma is in control of our country. They pay off both parties.
Absolutely.
And if you look at all the TV commercials, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, we were growing up, you didn't have TV commercials that were all about ask your doctor for Abilify, ask your doctor for Fuzu fa 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 fa, get your kids to have these 17 vaccines, boo boo boo. They invent these, you're right, they invent diseases, they invent the need for vaccines, the need for pills, and they also create new diagnoses. I know in psychiatry now, I think there's some diagnosis for a super sensitive person. Yeah, it's
But
like they're an empath. I don't get that part.
But this goes back to like when we had to create safe spaces because
Yeah.
somebody feels threatened. I mean, that's the other thing that when you go into a doctor's office, they ask you, do you feel threatened? Do you want, it's like, when did we become so touchy-feely that we can't even just sit in the office with a fucking doctor and talk to him like a normal human being?
You're not kidding. I mean, last night I was watching this movie called Mother's Instinct with 2 stars, but the beginning of the show, it was like some kind of like thriller, kind of warped story at the end. One of the mothers gets a little psychotic, but at the beginning there's like a trigger warning. This has some stuff that might upset you, so be careful. You may not want to watch this.
Yeah.
What? Come on. I mean, what are they trying to do to us?
Well, this started, I think it was the 80s with, do you remember the PMRC, the Parents Music Resource Center, where they went after rock music? They went after Twisted Sister and Wasp, and they said, these lyrics are going to make you shoot your friend. These lyrics are going to make you turn to drugs. And it's like, the fuck are you talking about? You know what that was? That was a bunch of rich white housewives of the congressmen and the senators who had nothing better to do in their lives than inflict their personal bullshit on the rest of America.
You talking about Ginny Thomas now?
Well,
no.
Ginny, yeah, well, exactly. It's the same thing. It's the exact same thing, except somehow they protect her. They protect a lot of people. Back then, these wives just openly went in, they had Senate hearings about these rock music lyrics, and then they started labeling everything. I think that's kind of where it started, because I don't even remember, they have TV ratings now, which, does anybody even pay attention to TV ratings?
How could they be relevant? Yeah.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense. I know, but they keep on justifying advertising dollars, I guess.
But like what you saw last night, when you saw that little warning, if you were a parent, are you going to be like, oh, Johnny, you better get away from the TV because you're going to go want to strangle the dog?
I would have turned it off, except I was bored. I mean, I just resented even seeing that.
Yeah.
They have no right to do all these governing boards and regulation boards and rating boards. It's all part of the indoctrination and the control of the big brother that's coming down the pike. I'm telling you.
But would you say that Big Pharma is one of the most control? See, I kind of think Big Pharma is almost the most controlling body in government.
Okay, but you got Big Pharma, and then you got big military complex, industrial complex.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Pharma industrial and military industrial. Both of them have their teeth in us, basically.
And we're not going to be able to get out of it.
No. We're headed towards a lot of wars coming up. I mean, a lot of fighting all over the world now. I don't think it's going to get any easier. Israel and Lebanon and this and that.
I was going to say, yeah, they're talking about Israel invading Lebanon now.
This is nightmare. That I don't see how that tones down.
Okay, let me ask you this question, and I know this is a weird question. If the United States, for a year, just did this about Israel, would that solve our problem with the Middle East?
No.
If we just said, hey, you know what? You're on your own. We're not going to get involved, and we're going to stay out of it, because it's kind of what, this is what I don't understand. Politicians say we shouldn't be involved with anybody else, but then we're going to be involved with everybody else. So
Well, I know. So you really can't maintain. You really can't create an isolationist policy, but then have exceptions, can you?
no, like how do you support Israel, but then you don't want to support the Ukraine? Because the benefit and the goal of both is to save democracy, is to help democracy, is to help our cause.
Okay, so first I would say you answer your question. The reason why, if we just said no, we don't see it, no hear it, no see it, no do it, no nothing. If we separate ourselves completely, it would cause a much more significant imbalance in that area, and it would bite everybody in the ass. I don't think it would resolve anything. It would only make Israel more ferocious.
But who would it bite in the ass? Does it bite us? Does it bite Europe? Does it bite the Middle East? I mean, what are the
It'll inflame everything because it'll inflame Israel. Israel will realize it doesn't have its ally anymore, and now all bets are off. And now it doesn't have to listen to the United States at all, and it'll do whatever it wants.
Well, they're not listening to us anyways.
Well, to some degree they are, but I agree. I agree. It's loose.
Does Netanyahu have to go?
I don't know what's best. I do know that if they were to do a ceasefire and they were to pull out and normalize everything, that in 5 years, 7 years, it's going to be chaos and mayhem again.
But I don't understand what problem people have with the Jews. I mean, I've been to Israel a couple of times. I have lots of Jewish friends. I've been to Israel. I've talked to those people. They're the kindest, nicest, smartest people in the world. Why do people have such a problem with the Jews? I just don't get it.
You're asking me?
And but this has been going on for like years, for decades, for millennium. I don't understand.
For millennium, yeah, like forever. Well, I don't get it either. I mean, what I thought initially is, people are reading the Bible and it goes, the Jews are God's chosen people.
Yeah.
Well, fuck them. It's like right out of the gate, they're angry.
But you know what? I remember a couple years ago, I was in Israel and I was having lunch with a friend there. And I leaned in and I go, why do people hate the Jews? What's the problem? And she goes, well, we're the chosen people. And I go, you can't say that. That's what gets people all crazy when you say stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think, but that's it. That set up the initial jealousy of Jews because God loved the Jews more. So that made everyone resentful of the Jews. And look, if somebody loves, usually that's why like siblings want to get rid of the older brother. Get rid of that guy, then I'll get all the juice.
Yeah, yeah. Wait, the juice or the Jews?
The juice.
The juice, okay.
Hey, get the ovens ready.
It's just, it's sad. I mean, people around the world, I mean, you've traveled a lot, I've traveled a lot. People around the world, for the most part, are really nice and they're kind and they're normal and they're decent and they have a conversation and you can get along with everybody. It's these bullshit things that we come up with that separate
You know what? The people are really nice and wonderful, but put three of them together who think the same thing and the nightmare begins.
Yeah.
And we're right, everyone else is wrong. We're right, everyone else is racist. We're right, that's disinformation. Both sides, all over the place. I was going to ask you a question. Who do we have our Facebook comments. Some people they hate our guts.
They're so angry.
And they're so angry, and they immediately attack us personally, our brain power, our physical appearances, etc. So much hate. And I'm wondering, do you think that? Who do you think? Do you think that the Democrats or the liberals are more hateful, or the Republicans, or it's equal? What do you think?
That's a good question. I think that it's the conservatives that tend to want to say these guys are idiots. They look like they've never gotten laid. It's so funny because they have the same narrative, which is what I find so fascinating. It's always about brain power and never getting laid.
Yeah, but the other day there was a comment from someone. I didn't think it seemed that they were a liberal and they called us incels.
Well, yeah, which I never even heard that word. I actually had to look that up. I'm like,
yeah, me too.
What the fuck is an incel?
Go, holy shit! Wow.
Well, maybe they have a point. Then maybe they are smarter than we are.
Hardly.
But you know what it is? I think I think a lot of times people they see the other comments and then they comment on that because it goes back to what America does, which is we don't want to read, we don't want to pay attention, we don't want to do our homework. We're just going to read what other people say and then we're going to comment on that because that must be what this is all about.
Oh, yeah. It's so interesting to see people start attacking each other on a thread that goes away from what we were talking about.
Because you can really tell when somebody watches the show, they'll dig deep into the episode and they'll pull something out like, oh, They've watched, 20, 30 minutes into it because we don't talk about that until that point.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
even if they insult us at that point, I'm okay with it because at least you're watching the episode.
yeah, yeah. Well, in any event, yes, there is so good people everywhere. But what happens is, for some reason, all this divisiveness from the media, I think, because
Yeah.
that's how they make money, by keeping
Yeah.
people angry at each other, and keeping the wars going. That's how they make money. And when people are angry and depressed and anxious, that's how Big Pharma makes money. So it's all money,
But
and people get crazy.
I think the hundreds of comments that we end up getting on the Facebook page is just, it feeds into people love to be sitting in the corner of their dark home and making little comments because it makes them feel better about their shitty lives. It's like, if you actually had a decent life where you had a nice spouse and you had nice friends and you had a nice, everything, you wouldn't be have to shitting on us and you didn't even watch the episode.
Absolutely. I think the people who hate themselves and their lives the most are the ones that need to tear other people down.
Okay, and speaking of shitting on people, now Newsom in California, I want to talk about this. Prop 36 is on the ballot, which is overwhelmingly being supported by Californians. I think something by 70 to 30%. And what they want to do is they basically want to roll back Prop 47, which they passed years ago in California. They said, oh, we need to alleviate the number of people in the California jails. So they turned a lot of crimes that used to be felonies for theft, for drugs and whatnot, into misdemeanors, which basically meant that they were going to slap you on the wrist and you were going to get out. But they're like, oh, we opened up all the jails. There are not as many people in jail. But what it's done now, it's empowered the criminals to go rob people, to steal people, because they know they're not going to be arrested. They know they're not going to go into jail. So now Prop 36 says, you know what? We're gonna make these charges. It's basically back to the 3-strike law, which is if you've had 2 charges and you get caught again for a misdemeanor, it's now going to become a felony charge. Now Newsom is saying that he's not for it.
Well, because then this is part of his woke mentality of it's racist to have people in prison. And so let's get him out of prison.
You know what? It's not even the woke mentality. What he's saying is, well, we don't have the budget for it. We don't have the budget because it's just going to increase the numbers in the jails, and the jails are going to burst at the seams again. I've never understood why jails are.
Wait a second. Does he ever factor in the cost of all the violence and destruction and stealing and everything?
That's the point I was going to make. It's like you're worried about the cost, but what about the cost of people their houses are broken into, they're being injured, they're being maimed, they're being killed, they're stealing this stuff. What about that cost? What about the cost to the actual constituents that live in California?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is, again, a total misappropriation of funds. While he wants to do other stuff with the money, that's his pet projects that'll make him look good as a presidential candidate someday. And meantime, the people get shit on. And look what this is one more way of turning California into a bigger shithole than it is already.
And I don't know how they consider it racist. They're saying, well, it's racist that if we're not going to, it's not going to be a misdemeanor anymore.
Because it seems that there's a preponderance of people of color in jails, perhaps because they are lower socioeconomic and commit more crimes. But that's the reason they commit crimes, not because they're black or Hispanic and put in jails for that.
But I think you're going to see finally, because California, I don't understand half the shit that this state does. I mean, I don't understand why we vote for more taxes, why we vote for more gas taxes, why we vote for more school funding. It's all bullshit.
Look, it's because this is a Democratic blue state. And what happens is an idea goes in this ear and comes out the other and doesn't swoosh around in here at all. Okay. So, they say I should vote Democratic. Click, 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 click. Should I read what it's actually saying? No. Click, 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 click. They're going to take care of me. Click, click, click.
Well, not only that, I mean, in jails, they should have 5 people to 1 cell. They should give them bread and butter. They should make being in jail so miserable that you will do anything and everything to not go to jail.
Absolutely. I mean, what's the deal where they've got cable and sports exercise rooms and lounge chairs and all this kind of crap? Of course, you're giving them like a life that right, and doesn't deter anything. I agree with you.
And this bullshit about the budget, the new California budget for 24-25 is going to be $297.5 billion. Now, how much of that do you think is going to illegal aliens in the country, in California?
1%? I have no idea.
10%. Okay. $30 billion is what California is spending on people in the country illegally for healthcare, for education.
Oh, is that what you meant?
Yes.
I thought you were talking about the border or stopping the
No, no, no,
border or
no.
something.
No,
This is entitlements.
this entitlements for helping people who have come into the country illegally that are in California. 1/10 of our budget goes to helping them. In fact, 1/10 of California's population is now illegal immigrants.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's over 3 million, and we have what, 33 million, 32 million people in California.
I'm telling you, at some point, California, there's going to be a tsunami. Malibu goes away. Arizona is the new West Coast.
But I will say that they also look at what those people provide to California, but it still doesn't come close. I think they said it was something like $8 to $10 billion that they actually provide to the economy with.
Okay, but here's the problem with this. That's the whole problem with the whole immigration system. Yeah, we appreciate that we need low labor, cost labor, and all this kind of shit, but you just can't use that as the basis for allowing all these people in. You still have to have an immigration system and then bring as many people in to cover the jobs, but know who they are. And
you have to have rules.
Yes.
I mean, you have to have rules. And I don't know why everybody is so against following or having any rules, not just in immigration, just in anything in life now.
Absolutely. And they don't want to follow the rules. And then they change the rules by changing the wording. So it doesn't seem like you've actually broken the rules.
And now Newsom he just vetoed this week. They wanted to give reparations to the Hispanic Americans in Chavez Ravine, where Dodger Stadium was built. Now, this happened like a month or two ago. Remember where he wouldn't sign the bill about reparations for Black Americans in California from something that happened 150 years ago. And he turned down the bill for the Mexicans in Chavez Ravine. Chavez Ravine, to me, is actually a little different because they did go in. The whole idea was they were going to kick those people out and they were going to turn it into a low-income housing development. And then that never happened. So then they sold it to the Dodgers and Dodgers built Dodger Stadium. So they completely fucked those people. This is one of those instances where I do think that those people do deserve reparations.
Okay, and he didn't deny it. He just said he kicked it down to the local level for them to evaluate it.
See, I thought he said no because he said we don't have the money to deal with this right now.
No. In this particular case, he said, look, this is a local issue, not a state issue. Let them do the initial analysis.
Okay, well, see, that makes sense then.
Yeah, he kicked it down. But by the way, the problem with this is that their basic complaint is they're suing on the basis, they want to sue on the basis of eminent domain, where the government comes in and says, we want this, we need this, tough luck. And so if they were to win, this would set a precedent on eminent domain reparations all over the place. It'd be impossible.
And it'll bankrupt every city, every county, every state.
Yeah, I think we have to accept the fact that the past is the past and it's over and you can't fix it. But what you can do is try to make things fair now.
But you can't put the burden on 30 million Californians who weren't even here. It's not even our generation. It's not even the previous generation. It's generations ago. Why am I paying for it? It's like, I'm not racist. I have no problem with them. It's like, why am I paying for it?
Yeah, you're right.
And by the way, California, every household, every person in California pays $7,000 a year towards illegal immigrants in California.
Wow.
Isn't that fucking crazy?
That is amazing. That is amazing. I know. So, yes. So why do we keep voting this guy in?
Well, I got to tell you something. He's put in the new bill, in the new budget, he's put in $12 million for reparations. I think that's his foot in the door, that this is where California is going to go. The only reason that he didn't approve reparations for Black people a couple of weeks ago is because the election's coming up and he didn't want to take a chance that there would be any issues with Kamala in the presidency. I guarantee you, she gets in, that whole fucking reparation thing is going to completely change.
As in upstairs.
Yeah, they're going to be empowered because they're going to be in power now and they can basically get away with it. Because California has a super majority of Democrats and they don't mind spending your money and my money and they don't give a shit.
So are you implying that that the stuff she's saying now, she's going to reverse and go full woke later? Or full?
No, I think Newsom's going to go full woke later.
And she won't or will?
We really don't know anything about her. I mean, this is what we talked about before. I mean, 6 weeks ago, everybody fucking hated Kamala. And it's like nobody could understand why she was even vice president. I know when Biden picked her, I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Right.
But now all of a sudden she's the second coming. But you know what that tells you? That tells you how much they hate the other side.
Absolutely. This is all about hating Trump and being afraid of his his fascism that they believe.
Yeah.
And abortion is a big issue to people. It seems more important than the economy or the border. It's wild to me.
Well, abortion, I mean, they should have never overturned Roe v. Wade. That was such a colossal mistake.
It was not necessary.
It was
Yeah.
not. And the fact that he goes around saying everybody wanted this, the Democrats, the liberals, the conservatives, the doctors, it's such bullshit.
But people did acknowledge along the way that it was flawed, I think, and that it should have been in the States. But this is one of these things where over time it assimilates into what it is.
Yeah.
So even if it is flawed, it's law. Pretty much was the law of the land. So why they needed to turn the screws
But I think it's going to be the even bigger problem is the fact that you have Justice Roberts, who's the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, intentionally shielding Trump from charges that he is trying to put his hand into what other justices are doing, how they're voting, and it's not right. And it's a complete violation of the trust that people are supposed to have in the Supreme Court.
I totally agree with you, and it's shocking to me. There was a time when we grew up, when you looked up at these Supreme Court justices, you recognized that they were impartial. They're going to follow the Constitution, and they're not going to be biased by party politics. And that has just totally eroded. It's gone. You can't trust any of these people anymore because they just rubber stamp somebody. They don't really even vet anybody. The Democrats take whoever they want and stuff them in. The Republicans stuff them in.
But didn't that used to be true with so many things? You used to look up to doctors, and now the doctors are raping people, and they're prescribing medication, and they're making money doing that. You used to look up to airline pilots. You used to look up. I mean, you used to have respect for the woman that was at the checkout stand at the grocery store because she was making an honest living.
Absolutely. And the reason why, to some degree, the reason why there is no respect for doctors and lawyers and all sorts of people is because the whole work ethic is gone. The whole community idea of I got a job to do and I'm proud. I have pride in my work and I'm going to make sure it's done right, and I care about people more and my job more than money. That used to be a work ethic. That's gone. So doctors, it's all a slippery slope. They're all very average, selfish, greedy, stupid people now running everything.
Well, I know that happened at a restaurant here in Woodland Hills that I know somebody that works there, and a girl that had been working there for a couple months all of a sudden starts, telling off the customers. They say, well, why is this on the menu? She goes, how do I know? I get minimum wage. Why are you asking me? I don't care. Then she told the customers to go fuck off, and she ended up quitting.
Oh, unbelievable.
Well, why do you even get a job there? If you're so angry and you don't want to do it, why the fuck get a job? Why put that business at risk?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there are a lot of people who hate their jobs and they haven't figured out how to quit and find something else. And so they stay there angry, bitter, crazy. Maybe they'll have an accident and go on disability. Who knows what? But yeah, it's nuts. If you're so angry and hateful about your job, leave the job, find something else. There's a better life out there.
Well, this goes back to the whole mental health thing that people are so afraid to just confront their own mental health and say, hey, maybe I need help.
Absolutely. Usually what happens is they hit like alcoholics and addicts. They got to wait until they hit bottom, till they destroy different aspects of their lives so badly that they finally have the humility to say, please help me. I can't do it on my own.
Walter, and let me just say now that you need help.
You're not the first to say that. And I know.
Anything else?
No, that's good. Had fun. Thanks a lot, man.
All right, man. We'll see you guys next weekend. For Walter Jacobson, I'm Derek Christopher. This has been Rain Wrestling, and we'll see you next week.
Take care. Bye-bye.
I don't know what they have to say. It makes no difference anyway. Whatever it is, I'm against it. No matter what it is or who commenced it, I'm against it.